Hello and welcome to Notice Tonight, the show that decodes the region. The Chinese wanted to alter or break the status quo along the line of actual control in the Tawang sector in Arunachal Pradesh, but the Indian troops gave the People's Liberation Army a bloody nose. They retreated following a flag meeting between the local army commanders on both sides, and now the situation is officially stated to be normal in the Yangtze area in Tawang district, which incidentally of course is the home constituency of Arunachal Chief Minister Pema Khandu. Transgressions or hyperactive army patrols are quite common along the India-China border in the Himalayan heights. But what happened on December 8 and 9th must have been an aggressive attempt by the Chinese PLA to cross the line of actual control. During the face-off, the first major confrontation since Galwan in 2020, several soldiers on both sides were injured. At least 6 Indian soldiers are reported injured and undergoing treatment, but none grievously. The face-off did not appear to have happened overnight. There were reports of the Chinese increasing troop strength along the Arunachal sector. The Indian military establishment was not unaware of this, with reports saying that the Indian Air Force have been engaged in active combat patrols in the area and had even scrambled fighter jets on a number of occasions in recent weeks. The big question is, why is the Chinese trying to be aggressive once again? Is it some domestic compulsions, or is Beijing really pursuing its dream to expand its territory? To discuss the issue, I have a very eminent panel tonight. I have with me Lieutenant General Subrata Saha, former Vice Chief of Army Staff and a strategic analyst. Well-known China expert Mr. Jayadeva Ranade, who is former Additional Secretary in the Cabinet Secretariat, is joining me from New Delhi. Also with me in New Delhi is Dr. Srikanth Kondapalli, Professor at Jawaharlal Nehru University and one of India's leading experts on China. And with me is Mr. Ninong Ering, MLA and a former MP from Arunachal Pradesh, someone who has been monitoring China for decades. Before we begin the discussion, let's take a look at this special report on what had unfolded at Yangtze on the night of December 8 and 9th.
Chinese PLA at it again. Chinese troops try to change status quo on the line of actual control in the Tawang sector of Arunachal Pradesh. Indian troops thwart incursion attempt by PLA. Aggression resisted with firmness by army, forcing PLA troops to return to their post. Several soldiers from both sides injured in the face-off. So what happened at Yangtze in Tawang sector, which has led to a huge uproar and once again raised questions on China's intentions? Well, not to forget, this was the closest encounter between Indian and Chinese troops since the deadly June 2020 Galwan clash. As per the army, troops from both sides came face to face while patrolling at the Yangtze area on December 9th, and a physical fight broke out following an argument. Several soldiers from both sides sustained injuries in the clash. Both sides also disengaged from the area due to timely intervention by Indian military commanders who held a flag meeting with their PLA counterparts at the border. Now, as per sources, the clash began on the wee hours of December 9th at an area along the LAC near Yangtze in eastern Tawang. While Indian and Chinese troops are usually positioned on either side of the mutually disputed area, but on December 9th, some 300 Chinese troops tried to cross over to the Indian side. There were no warning signs about the transgression. However, the Indian troops gave a befitting reply to the intruders. What followed was an intense hand-to-hand combat that supposedly went on for over an hour, as per reports. Sources say that at least 6 Indian soldiers have been injured in the clash, while the number of injuries on the Chinese side is more. So what could have possibly led to the transgression? Well, in certain areas along the LAC in the Tawang sector in Arunachal Pradesh, there are areas of differing perception, where both sides patrol the area up to their claim lines. This has been the trend since 2006. However, could this be the only reason for the incident? Well, defense observers feel that this transgression attempt was pre-planned. With snowfall in the area, this is the time when some Indian troops withdraw from their positions. So was China looking to exploit this tactical upper hand? Is this sudden aggression also part of China's plan to keep India on the edge? Well, one thing is clear, that our braves regrouped within a short span of 30 minutes to eventually push back the Chinese. The incident at Yangtze is an indication that the PLA cannot be trusted at any given time. Continued diplomatic engagement is also a must to maintain tranquility at the border. Bureau Report, Northeast Live.
Well, gentlemen, welcome to this debate, India-China face-off in the Tawang sector. Crucial developments during the day today. There was an uproar in Parliament. Defense Minister gave a statement. The Union Home Minister spoke on the issue. We'll debate all of this. But first, let's listen to what former Army Chief General J.J. Singh, the former governor of Arunachal Pradesh, told me earlier in the day when I discussed on this issue with him. Let's listen to General J.J. Singh.
Thank you, Wasbir, for giving me this opportunity to share my views, my understanding of India-China relations. Now, the problem with India and China is that there are few issues which are contentious and which will not allow the relations to stabilize, because China is not very happy if the Indian democratic way of life and the governing system succeeds. Now, as far as China is concerned, besides the ideological clash, they know very well that their system of communism and a communist rule cannot survive if India succeeds. People will want a system like India. And already some opposition to Xi Jinping is being seen. Banners which could never have been imagined that he's a traitor were put up by some people. They must have disappeared by now. But the fact is that resistance, opposition, and you can say people's manifestations are in open domain, that they are not liking the way they are being governed. So besides that, there is a boundary dispute between India and China. It's the boundary which is in places undemarcated. But as far as Arunachal Pradesh is concerned, the Chinese went back after 1962 behind this McMahon line. And McMahon line is on all maps of the world shown as the boundary between India and Tibet and now China. So therefore, I think that contentious boundary will also not allow the situation to improve between India and China. And China appears to be not in a hurry. We said, okay, international boundary which we have drawn and you have drawn, we'll settle that at a later stage. For the present, let's agree to the line of actual control and determine that on the ground as we have seen it, and let's go step by step and have peaceful relations and maintain the dignity and respect to the line of actual control. So now that is the next issue. The third issue, of course, is that India getting close to USA and the West and Japan, Australia, the Quad, it shatters their morale. The Chinese feel scared. They know the weaknesses and strengths of democracies. They've been practicing this game for a long time. And you see already in the parliament, the opposition is gunning for the government. But that is the game which China played, and they are happy they are succeeding, because our opposition parties are playing into the hands of the Chinese by raising these questions, absurd questions about Indian Army's way of functioning and how we are defending the borders. We have done a remarkably good job. Also in Galwan, where they treated us a stab in the back, because agreement of 93 is peace and tranquility on the borders. No military action should be done. Status quo should not be changed. 1996 agreement on confidence building measures said that no military maneuvers large size, about 15,000 troops and above, should be done without in the vicinity of 15 kilometers of the border. But they came in Galwan on the guise of an exercise. But we all know when we go for exercise in the Indian Army, we don't carry ammunition, we don't carry tanks, we do carry tanks but no ammunition for them. We carry guns without the ammunition. We just take them to do the exercise. They brought in everything prepared to fight a local war. And we gave them a bloody nose in Galwan because they couldn't succeed. I think Xi Jinping wanted to do something dramatic, something which will strengthen his position so that he can tell the people that he's a great leader, but he didn't succeed in that. His gamble failed. Similarly, now also he creates these instances like what has happened in Yangtze to divert the attention of the people.
Okay, that was General Jayadeva Singh basically saying that to divert the attention of the people, that is his main contention, that this is a game that Chinese always plays. This time also Xi Jinping was trying to divert the attention of the people. Lieutenant General Subrata Saha, welcome to Northeast Tonight on a day when the Parliament, there was a lot of scenes in the Parliament and leading to a statement by the Defence Minister saying that assuring the nation and assuring Parliament that there was nothing to be in doubt that about the valor, about the capability of the Indian Army to defend the sovereignty and integrity of the country. What are your thoughts? Why are the big question, why are the Chinese coming to do this again and again and again?
Okay, so Wasbir, thank you for having me on your show.
Welcome.
You just heard a series of reasons given by General Jayadeva Singh on the event and as he perceived it. See, let's not forget that Arunachal Pradesh has always been used by China to, sort of use as a sort of leverage for its bogus claims that it has on the Oxygen, right? So this claim is nothing new. So now if you see, the Eastern Ladakh situation is frozen, and it has been frozen for a while now, despite all the border talks, all the Corps Commander level talks and all, seeing a very, very little movement there. So therefore, this is part of the larger game that they are trying to do to see if they can find some more, areas that they can use to leverage and create pressure points on India. So this obviously now they have chosen to shift to the Eastern Theatre, or what we call the Eastern Command. So that is quite clear. Now, having said that, we have to understand the broader issues that General JJ brought out. But at the same time, we have to understand that now on both sides, there has been an improvement in the infrastructure, right? So this area that we are saying, Yangtze face-offs, this is nothing new, let me tell you this. Every year, literally, it happens. The PLA comes there at least 3 to 4 times to establish their claim, and there have been situations which people will tell you where they literally request the Indian people, the Indian Army people, to permit them to take pictures with their flag because they have got to go back and report. But what is disturbing this time is the fact that the level of aggression has gone up,
right,
which means that
right,
there is an increase in the escalation level. So that is something which must raise the hackles. The second point which I want to highlight, if you went back by about 5-6 years or 4-5 years, this area was typically being visited by their patrols, and when I say patrols, large-sized patrols, it was usually in large numbers they would come, and ordinarily they would try to at least reach three or four points in that vicinity. People who are familiar with the terrain know it over there. And unlike in eastern Ladakh, over here, we are sitting right on the McMahon line.
Right.
And numbers have been increased over the years. And as I was mentioning a little while back, our road infrastructure there also, specifically to this point, has improved as much as as much as the Chinese have improved the road infrastructure that side. So they were about these activities typically between April, May till about August, September.
We will carry forward, General Saab. We will
December.
Right. We will. There are some important points made by Lieutenant General Subrata Saha. General Saab, I'm coming back to you in a minute. Mr. Ninong Ering, you know, you have heard General J.J. Singh as well as General Subrata Saha. They're saying that, you know, basically the Chinese, this can be part of their strategy because they're opening newer fronts with which to put the pressure, keep the pressure on as far as with India is concerned. Now General J.J. went to the extent of saying that this could be a tactic to divert attention. But my question to you is a little different, Mr. Ninong Ering. You represent Arunachal Pradesh. You are a very important leader of the state of Arunachal Pradesh. My question is, do you think that now that India is also trying to match the infrastructure in the Arunachal frontier, there is the tunnel which has about to be opened to Tawang, that will reduce both the time and allow the civilians as well as the military hardware to move easily to the Chinese frontier. Do you think these could be also some of the reasons why the Chinese could be deciding to put pressure on India in the Arunachal sector?
Arunachal is very sensitive for that. Let me be very frank, because Tawang is from where our Filipinos had to come into India. So that is one thing that is always teaching. The question that you asked, it is very important. And the Subrataji, our Excellency said, we have the experience. I'm not an army man, a resident of. So, we discussed with our Chief Minister, because that is Tawang, and this area, I think both of the army officers, their experience.
No, one thing, Ninong Ering ji, you know, General J.J. Singh said that China wanted to, China realizes that the opposition in India will rake up this issue in a democracy. They know the strengths and weaknesses of a democracy. And as expected, the opposition in India today, including your party, I mean, I'm not politicizing the issue. I'm just asking. No. I have not invited you here as a Congress leader. I have invited you here as a leader representing Arunachal Pradesh. My question is, the China wants that there will be political uproar over this issue, and they've hogged the limelight. Do you think that could be one of the reasons? Do you think China has achieved its objective? Because Union Home Minister has condemned the opposition attempt to stall Parliament today.
Yeah, I'll agree to that, because let it be the India, okay, whichever party is in Delhi, they have to think Andhra Pradesh, because the issue is there. McMahon line, the LAC.
Okay, I've got a very poor audio. I've got a very poor audio with Mr. Ninong Ering. Let me turn to Dr. Srikanth Kondapalli. Dr. Kondapalli, can you hear me in the first place? Okay, you can hear me, but I can't hear you. The problem continues. That is the issue. I'm coming back to you, General Subrata Saha. But before that, we have seen throughout the day today that the citizens of Arunachal Pradesh, whether it is the youths or whether it is the senior citizens, they have come out openly in support of the Indian Army, because the Arunachalis are among the most patriotic people in the country. They said that they're ready to guard the border. They said that they were with the army in 1962 in the face of heavy odds. They are with the army now, and they are going to be with the army and the nation in the days to come. Let's listen in to some of the various comments that have come up from the civilian population of Arunachal Pradesh that we have exclusively brought to you on Notice Live.
नमस्कार, हम लोग ऑल तोंग डिस्ट्रिक्ट स्टूडेंट यूनियन और साथ में तोंग वासियों की ओर से जो हमें कल परसों एक दुखद सूचना मिला है जो कि हमारा बॉर्डर छुमी गजर में चाइना की ओर से जो हमारा देश के जवान के साथ कुछ हाथापाई हुआ है, तो मैं चाइना को हमारा तोंग वासियों की ओर से यही संदेश देना चाहता हूं कि इस तरह हरकत हम लोग कभी भी सहन नहीं करेगा। और साथ में मैं ये भी संदेश देना चाहता हूं कि आप लोग हमारा बॉर्डर का अंदर में घुसने के लिए कभी कोशिश ना करें। अगर हम लोग ज़रूरत पड़े तो हम लोग बॉर्डर में खड़ा होने के लिए रेडी है। तो यही कहना चाहता हूं। थैंक यू।
भारत माता की जय।
9 दिसंबर 2022 को पीएलए ट्रुप्स ने तवांग सेक्टर के यांगसे एरिया में लाइन ऑफ एक्चुअल कंट्रोल
This is the defense minister.
2022 को पीएलए ट्रुप्स ने तवांग सेक्टर के यांगसे एरिया में लाइन ऑफ एक्चुअल कंट्रोल पर अतिक्रमण कर स्टेटस को एक तरफा बदलने का प्रयास किया। चाइना के इस प्रयास का हमारी सेना ने दृढ़ता के साथ सामना किया है अध्यक्ष महोदय, और इस फेस ऑफ में हाथापाई भी हुई है। भारतीय सेना ने बहादुरी से पीएलए को हमारी टेरिटरी में अतिक्रमण करने से रोका और उन्हें उनकी पोस्ट पर वापस जाने के लिए मजबूर कर दिया अध्यक्ष महोदय। इस झड़प में दोनों ओर के कुछ सैनिकों को चोटें भी आई हैं और मैं इस सदन को अवगत कराना चाहता हूं कि हमारे किसी भी सैनिक की न तो मृत्यु हुई है और न ही कोई गंभीर रूप से घायल हुआ है। इंडियन मिलिट्री कमांडर्स के टाइमली इंटरवेंशन के कारण पीएलए सोल्जर्स अपनी लोकेशंस पर वापस चले गए अध्यक्ष महोदय, और इस घटना के पश्चात एरिया के लोकल कमांडर ने 11 दिसंबर 2022 को अपने चाइनीज काउंटर पार्ट के साथ स्थापित व्यवस्था के तहत एक फ्लैग मीटिंग की और इस घटना पर चर्चा की। चीनी पक्ष को इस तरह के एक्शन के लिए मना किया गया और सीमा पर शांति बनाए रखने के लिए कहा गया। इस मुद्दे को चीनी पक्ष के साथ कूटनीतिक स्तर पर भी उठाया गया है। अध्यक्ष महोदय, मैं इस सदन को आश्वस्त करना चाहता हूं कि हमारी सेनाएं हमारी भौमिक अखंडता को सुरक्षित रखने के लिए पूरी तरह से प्रतिबद्ध हैं और इसके खिलाफ किसी भी प्रयास को रोकने के लिए सदैव तत्पर है हमारी भारत की सेना। और मुझे विश्वास है कि यह सदन हमारी सेनाओं की वीरता और साहस को एक स्वर से समर्थन देगा। और अध्यक्ष महोदय, मैं पूरी तरह से आश्वस्त हूं कि यह संसद बिना किसी संशय के भारत की सेना की क्षमता, शौर्य, पराक्रम व प्रतिबद्धता का भी अभिनंदन करेगा।
Okay, that was the Defense Minister Rajnath Singh speaking in the Parliament earlier today when the entire opposition almost wanted a statement from the government, and he assured the nation and Parliament that there was no reason for any doubt on the capabilities and the valor of the Indian Army, that the nation was absolutely safe. He said that Indian Army's valor needs to be supported in unison by everybody in Parliament. I am joined by Mr. Jayadeva Ranade, former Additional Secretary in the Cabinet Secretariat, well-known China expert. Dr. Ranade, welcome to Northeast Tonight. My first question is a very simple one. Now, you know, it seems from other sectors, the Chinese have seriously started focusing their attention on the eastern side, and that too in the Arunachal sector. Why this aggression? Why this aggressive posturing on the Arunachal frontier, according to you?
Well, the Arunachal sector has been in their crosshairs for quite some time. But I would slightly disagree when you say that they are now focusing only on the Arunachal sector. They are focusing on the entire 4,057 kilometer long line of actual control. They've started from the eastern Ladakh sector, and now they're trying to distribute the pressure so that we are stretched thin. Our forces are stretched to the limit. And Arunachal is certainly one of the major sectors. After all, They have been talking about Tawang. They have listed it as one of their hotspots and they are focusing on it. Plus, there have been a number of articles written by PLA officers mentioning the advantages of capturing Arunachal. So they are looking at it. I'm certain they will not be able to achieve their ambition, but we can expect continued pressure, not only in Arunachal, but across along our LAC for some time to come.
Okay, that's an interesting perspective. Let me before I will come back to you once again in a minute, Mr. Jayadeva Ranade. I will also go to General Subrata Saha. But quickly, I think we have an audio now finally with Dr. Srikanth Kondapalli. Dr. Kondapalli, can you hear me now? And let's see your audio first.
I can hear you. Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. Yes, I can hear you too. Welcome to Notice Tonight. Dr. Srikanth Kondapalli, professor at the Jawaharlal Nehru University, a leading expert on China. Dr. Kondapalli, the Chinese, after being humiliated in Tawang on 8th and 9th, they are now preaching peace. They're saying that, both sides need to strictly control and restrain frontline troops and work with China to maintain peace and tranquility on the border. This was the statement by an army PLA colonel, Long Xiaohua. He's a spokesperson of the Colonel Long Xiaohua. He's a spokesperson of the PLA preaching peace. What do you make of it? What do you first make of the aggressive posturing by China in the Tawang sector?
Two things was this. One is there has been an escalation by China in the last 2 years. For example, President Xi Jinping visited Ningxi Prefecture last July, and he had told the Chinese military to strengthen defenses. Secondly, there was also the infrastructure development projects that have been increased in Tibet. For example, in the 14th five-year plan, there has been an increase of nearly $23 billion to be invested in Tibet infrastructure. These are escalatory measures with the roads, railways, as well as airfield and fiber optics construction. These are escalatory measures that China had undertaken. Number one. Number two, as you mentioned, the Chinese have backed off, as Raksha Mantri mentioned in the parliament session, that they have backed off after the stiff response from the Indian Army. So this is one we also have to factor in terms of bridging any gaps. It is estimated that there are 23 gaps in the line of actual control that we need to fix before any new aggression takes place from China. And so we need to be on guard. And as the number of initiatives that we are undertaking, strategic roads, east-west highway, and others, this is a measure that we need to continue in the near future.
Okay, the infra push needs to continue. That's what Dr. Srikanth Kondapalli is saying, because infrastructure is a key. We have to give matches, and we have succeeded to some extent in giving a matcher to the Chinese infrastructure across the border. General Saha, one point which I would like to ask you basically is that, the Chinese have also constructed dual-use villages across Arunachal Pradesh from quite some time, where the civilian population as well as the army personnel can stay. That means, do you think they were preparing for this kind of an offensive in the eastern sector, and this time they have chosen Tawang because they have been demanding the whole of Arunachal Pradesh, which is of course a ridiculous demand. As General J.J. Singh said, we never had a border with China, we had a border only with Tibet, but that's a different issue. But issue is that, do you think they want to push and they are serious in their efforts? The fact that the Indian Army is not the army of 1962, that's a different matter. That our Chief Minister of Arunachal Pradesh has said today, while categorically stating that this is not 1962. What do you think, General?
Let me clarify. Wasbir, I think it would be an overstatement to call it an offensive.
Right.
Okay. I would request you to recast it as a much more aggressive portrayal
Aggressive posturing.
than we have seen in the past.
Yes.
So that I think needs to be
Absolutely, no doubt, no dispute on that. Yes.
But your more important question is this development of border villages. You are aware of that resolution which they had passed, and thereafter they have been actually going on a whole-scale drive to create these border villages. And the area that we are discussing now, opposite that as well, you may have seen the satellite images of a very fine border village, which is actually empty, more or less empty. Okay. And of course, it is not as if they have not reinforced or, shall we say, increased their dispositions here. It is known, and if you see the various, articles, etc., that have been coming out, they have increased their numbers south of River Sangpo since the time the activities happened in eastern Ladakh, which is more colloquially known as Galwan. We have seen an increase in their, dispositions, increase in their build-up, increase in their infrastructure, both to do with the PLA as well as the PLA Air Force. So therefore, there is no doubt that there is an escalation of sorts, and there is a preparation for escalation, because what China is doing with India is what we typically call the gray zone warfare. And when you're engaging in gray zone warfare with your adversary, you have to be prepared for escalation. So therefore, all this is fitting into the scheme of things as we are seeing today. Now, when we talk about, this development of border villages on the Chinese side, I think the important inference that we should take is to actually improve not only the military infrastructure, the civilian infrastructure on our side. And we are seeing some progress in this. This certainly needs to be accelerated, because, there should be no reason for our people to want to leave that area, whether that security is because of, adversarial conduct, or whether it is because of economic or other reasons. We should never have a situation where our, areas close to the border, whether it is in the
absolutely.
Uttarakhand or elsewhere, people should feel comfortable to be there next to their home and hearth. And you have just heard, you have yourself, played the responses of people from Arunachal, what they feel. And this has been consistent with Arunachal.
Right.
There's never in doubt on where their loyalties are. They are very much
absolutely
extremely good soldiers. I am from a Assam regiment. I can tell you that some of the most outstanding soldiers we get from Arunachal Pradesh. Over to you.
Absolutely. Outstanding soldiers the nation gets are from Arunachal Pradesh. That's what General Saha is saying. I'm coming to you, Ninong Ering, but let me quickly go to, once again, to Mr. Jayadeva Ranade. Mr. Ranade, once again, we have seen this aggressive posturing. At the end of the day, do you think domestic compulsions in China could be one of the reasons? Or do you think they want to continue putting pressure on India? Because after Galwan, after June 2020, 2.5 years, we have seen this clash, or we have seen this face-off. I'm not using the word clash, we have seen this face-off in Tawang.
Wasbir, I'm glad you raised this question, because I would like to clarify that we should not confuse what is happening with the current development inside China. In other words, it's not something which has happened just now. They have planned what they did in 2020 for at least 2 years before carrying out that action. That has not yet been resolved, and they've decided to extend it to now include Arunachal Pradesh. The second point I'd like to make is during the 20th Party Congress, which they had in October, there were 2 or 3 things that happened which we need to take note of. One, on the opening day of the Congress, when there were around 5,000 of the topmost officials and politicians of China present, they showed a screening of the clashes in the Galwan Valley. The meaning is very clear, that they're not going to ease up on pressure on India. That is the message. And we should accept that. The second is that at the Party Congress, when the new Central Military Commission was constituted by Xi Jinping, there are now 4 members of the 7-member Central Military Commission who have experience of and who are familiar with the Western Theatre Command, which has operational responsibility for the entire border with us. Third, if we see since the last 3 years, or 4 years in fact, the build-up across Arunachal Pradesh in Ningchir and those areas, it has been a lot. And a lot we are not able to spot or identify because
Right.
they're building railways there. And let's not forget the looming threat, which is the dam on the great bend of the
Yes.
Brahmaputra, which they are also planning. So we should not treat this lightly. This is a serious thing. And to my mind, they are going to keep putting pressure on us over the next couple of years. As the general said, we are looking at grey zone. Well, let's hope it's only grey zone, but I think that they are quite prepared to have skirmishes if necessary, maybe with clubs and barbed wire or whatever, but each one of them indicates prior preparation.
Now, they used clubs and barbed wire and stones and all that during the Galwan face-off in 2020. But my question to you, Dr. Kondapalli, what should be the government of India's response? I'm coming with this question to both Mr. Ranade as well as the general. But first, Dr. Srikanth Kondapalli, what should be India's response, according to you?
I think it should be approach. Number one, with the conventional deterrence capabilities need to be enhanced, especially of the Army and the Air Force, number one. Number two, the infrastructure projects have to be commissioned quickly by the involvement of the local indigenous people and the chambers of commerce. They need to become the stakeholders in the local security as well as developmental aspects. Thirdly, the Indian side also need to involve a number of countries, not in Arunachal Pradesh per se, but in terms of the diplomatic initiative, diplomatic posturing.
But one question to you, Dr. Kondapalli, one question to you. Today, the defense minister said that India has also taken up this matter at the diplomatic level. But question is economic boycott? After Galwan, there was a wave in the country that Chinese goods needs to be boycotted. India also took a lot of action, and then a lot of apps and other were banned and so on. But now we seems to have diluted on that. That is the impression. We have not heard anything on that. Do you think that is an option?
Well, the trade is conducted by the private business people, and the government of India is not involved in this. However, there was a decision taken to decouple from China in trade, commerce, investments, people-to-people contacts, and others. And this is a very slow process, and it may take 4 or 5 years for us to complete that process. But let me also remind that all Arunachal Pradesh Youth Congress had given a boycott of the Chinese goods, but it was not very successful venture, partly because the people started buying all these smuggled goods or contraband goods coming from Myanmar.
Right.
A possibility for that kind of contraband goods being circulated. Smuggled goods.
It didn't meet with much of a success. Mr. Ninong Ering, throughout the day today, one good thing, this is the huge thing as one expected, absolutely. We were not surprised, but we are asking is because we have seen it today. Local people in Arunachal Pradesh, the Arunachalis, they have dared China. They have dared China, and they said that they will stand shoulder to shoulder with the Indian army in protecting the nation. The message has gone out loud and clear from the citizenry, from the people of Arunachal Pradesh.
Yes, I think I will support people. We also had taken a very clear part the Pasi, there's bhakti in them and nationalism in them. But I was just my video having some slight problem. I'm in a report.
Yeah, you are in a remote. Ninong Ering ji getting connected with me from a very remote area. He is online from a very remote area. The network is not good, but the fact that he is with us also express a lot about the mood on the ground. Everybody that we have spoken to. I'm coming to you, Mr. Ranade and General Saab, but let's listen to other local comments from Arunachal Pradesh very quickly before I go to this to very well-known experts on China.
62 से बार-बार और आपका हम लोग का बाउंड्री में जाके अरुणाचल बाउंड्री में जाके वो आता रहता है तो हर एक समय बोल के नहीं वो हर एक साल में एक बार आता रहता है तो इस तरह का ऐसे हरकत को इंडिया आर्मी अच्छा से उसको डिफेंड देना है अरुणाचल का ये हम लोग पब्लिक भी इंडियन आर्मी का साथ रहेगा जो 1962 से था आज भी रहेगा इंडिया आर्मी को टैंक्स देता है वो
चाइना जो है हमेशा एलओसी बाउंड्री को हमेशा हर साल क्रॉस करते रहता है और इसको हम लोग बहुत इंडिया आर्मी को थैंक्स देता है ऐसे जवाब देना है
ऐसे जवाब देना है जनरल साहा यू हैव हर्ड लोकल्स जैसे 1962 में भी था अब भी हूं और अगले आने वाले दिनों में भी रहूंगा so this is the message that the Arunachalis have sent out to the Chinese. They have dared the Chinese. General Saab, what does this indicate?
Well, this indicates that there is complete, unambiguous, unequivocal popular support for the army and the government of India. I think there is no doubt about that. Now, the other question which you had asked, to say that what should we be doing now?
Yeah.
I think we need to keep reminding Xi Jinping what he had said soon after taking over as the presidency in Durban in March of 2013. He had said the boundary resolution should be done with India as soon as possible. Obviously, he has forgotten it and he has chosen to try and push things to do on his terms. So he knows now very clearly that this cannot be done on his terms. So therefore, whether he does or not, we must keep, bringing out that point again and again. And the second point, we have heard our foreign minister, external affairs minister say that the boundary resolution cannot be delinked with the rest of the bilateral relationship. And from there comes a follow-up point that we cannot be so trade linked with them that in the same year in which you have Galwan, our trade goes up with them by 1/3. I mean, how do you justify this contradiction? So that is very important. The next thing is, I think, infrastructure is extremely important.
Yes.
Infrastructure must be developed, both military and civil, and so nothing can be more important than that. And while the armed forces prepare themselves for escalation, I think we are now in an era where we have to focus much more on space, our capabilities of ISR from space, our capabilities in the domain of cyber, both military and civil. Electronic warfare systems are extremely important. Unmanned systems are very important. And at the hub of all of this is artificial intelligence. And last but not the least, I think national unity in circumstances like this is paramount. Back to you.
Mr. Ranade, General Subrata Saha has talked of national unity, speaking in one voice, the cohesion. But today, what we saw today in the country, the opposition, they're accusing India of going soft. Do you think this was the time for political parties to be talking on this? Because we have seen the army at the Himalayan heights deal with this kind of a situation, 300 to 400, estimated 300 soldiers or more from the PLA at that height. The Indian army faced them, with all their might, with their bare hands, push them back. So what else do we need?
I don't think this is a time for scoring political points.
Yes.
The army is taking the action that it feels is appropriate. they've been given a carte blanche by the political leadership, and they're moving as per their norms, what they want to do. I think today the Chinese have made a miscalculation. I would call it almost a strategic miscalculation by doing what they did to us in April 2020. And with that, they have destroyed any trust that existed between the two of us. So the message is quite clear. What I'm trying to convey is that if our growth and development is going to be hampered by the Chinese, so will theirs in time to come. And that we will decide, I suppose, on what is to be done. But here, I'd just like to mention a couple of points going to what you said. And what should we be doing? I think we need to escalate the level of diplomatic discomfiture that we convey to, that we give to the Chinese. At every fora, international fora, we must raise the issues that are uncomfortable to them with and no longer pussyfoot on it. We need to take it up front. For example, human rights in Xinjiang, human rights in Tibet, these should be raised and they should be supported by us. The second is on the economic issue. I quite agree, and I think General Saha brought it out, that the trade balance has increased so much. We are now touching $90 billion. And when the Galwan happened, we were somewhere near 68 or 70. How come this has happened? Obviously, our businessmen and our traders are continuing to trade there. And we have taken no action. I think the time has come for the government to crack down now and lay down the limits of what can be got and what cannot be got. There are certain things, unfortunately, where we are dependent on them. Well, for the short time ahead, maybe we'll continue to be. But a lot of other stuff can be cut. It might mean that we have to pay a little more. But in the short term, I think that is a well worth sacrifice. If you're going to buy a bulb made in China for 3 rupees and you have to buy one made in India for 4, well, we might as well pay the 4 rupees. I think these things we have to start doing. And then, of course, there is a kinetic action. I mean, push comes to shove. I think I at least anticipate, and I sincerely hope I'm wrong, that the Chinese will keep pushing the envelope, and one day they might get a message back which they don't expect.
Absolutely. So one day they might get a message back which they may not expect, like the Pakistanis got. Dr. Srikanth Kondapalli, do you think there is more, India needs to do a little bit more muscle flexing? Now, there are reports that, in the last couple of weeks, the Indian Air Force had launched active combat patrols over Arunachal Pradesh. Due to, after having detected enhanced Chinese air activity, and several fighter jets have also been scrambled a couple of times by the Indian Air Force. Obviously, the Indian military establishment is obviously aware of what the Chinese are doing on the other side to a great extent. Now, my question to you, Dr. Kondapalli, do you think we need to do a little bit more muscle flexing?
Well, I think the Prime Minister visited Arunachal Pradesh on November 19th, and a week before that, the Tibetan Sikyong, Mr. Pempa Ering, visited Pradesh. So they have done some homework in this regard. And as far as the armed forces are concerned, the Indian Air Force exercises have been quite spectacular, starting from the Gagan Shakti exercises to that of the recent logistics-related aspects. However, we need to bridge on these matters. If you see the attacks on All India Institute of Medical Sciences and others in New Delhi, this is one where we need to bridge our capabilities. As far as is concerned, in Arunachal Pradesh, if it is a full-fledged warfare, then China has to mobilize a minimum 8 to 9 divisions, which is going to be problematic from the point of view of casualties on the Chinese front. And because of the control of passes that we have in this region. So it's a very hard angle. There does have to be a way out in regard because of the
I've got a lot of audio issues with Dr. Kondapalli, but basically Dr. Srikanth Kondapalli was saying that it will be not as easy as it might seem for the Chinese also to mobilize several of its divisions because of the issues. Now, I'm coming to you, Mr. Ranade, but before that, the Indian Air Force is set to carry out what is called a consolidated training exercise this week in the eastern sector to assess readiness of the aircrafts, and of course this is being said that it was planned well in advance, but that's a different story. But the fact remains that the Indian Air Force is carrying out what is called a consolidated training exercise this week in the eastern sector. Now muscle flexing, because the Chinese, Mr. Ranade, they only believe in somebody who can give it back, somebody who is strong. I mean, they realize that.
That's true. And in fact, we have followed a policy where we have always worked for a peaceful resolution and projected ourselves as a responsible power. But the Chinese have misinterpreted that as a sign of weakness from us. And I think now we have stood firm the last few occasions. To my mind, we have to administer a lesson to the Chinese before they start taking us seriously. There are, of course, many issues that we can discuss, but the time is short. But I feel that we do need now to start thinking of retaliatory measures which will hurt the China. May not be a serious escalation, but minor pinpricks also will make the Chinese recalculate and reassess what they are doing.
Final comments from you, General Saha. Is eye for an eye a solution? We have tried, as Mr. Ranade said, we have been very decent, but do you think that has been taken on many occasions as a weakness on our part? Do you think we need to do more? What do you think? Final comments.
Okay, so, Wasbir, let me clarify. You started your report by highlighting the injuries that the PLA has suffered here as well as in Galwan. So I don't think there is any great decency. Okay, I don't need to remind any soldier in the front line that
to be decent,
to give it to you, give it back in equal or more measure, definitely not less. And this is exactly what they have been doing. And let's make no mistakes.
Right.
In young self, I can tell you that there have been occasions in the past where with 35 people, 300 plus have been stopped by our chaps. Okay, so let's make no mistakes. But the larger point is, okay, if this is what is happening to us, if this is what China is trying to do to India as part of their gray zone warfare, obviously we can't be allowing it to go scot-free. We have to indulge in our own gray zone warfare as well. And I'm very sure that the leadership, political and military, know what needs to be done, and they will expand, like, all the 4 methods of warfare that Kautilya suggests, open, concealed, by counsel and so on. They will use all the 4 methods of warfare to make sure that we win India's wars with Indian solutions.
Absolutely, win India's war with India's solution. There we can expect a lot of developments in the grey zone warfare in the days ahead. This time around, the Chinese had increased the aggression level, aggressive posture. It's not aggression, aggressive posturing has been demonstrated by the Chinese, very well rebuffed. Very well, the Indian army gave the Chinese a bloody nose. They finally retreated. But this may not be the last we have heard, because the Chinese could be part of the Chinese tactic to do pinpricks. There could be more skirmishes along the frontier. This could be part of the Chinese strategy. 2013, as our panelists have pointed out, Xi Jinping pointed out that the border issue has to be resolved peacefully, but that has not happened. As Mr. Ranade said, the Chinese may have forgotten about that. But the fact remains that India cannot afford to lower its guard, particularly in the Arunachal sector, because apart from the conventional heights in which the two armies are located along the line of actual control, the Chinese have also built several dams and they have securitized water, and all these issues needs to be dealt with, needs to be taken in perspective or factored in preparing ourselves to meet with any eventualities. And of course, we all know that the government and the military establishment know what they are doing. On that note, I thank all my panelists for participating in the show and the viewers for watching the program. Good night and goodbye.